South Africa, the 15th BRICS Summit began in Johannesburg with heads of state of more than 34 countries meet to discuss partnership for mutually accelerated growth. In Costa Rica, university students protest to demand an increase in the higher education budget for 2024. And in Greece, the death toll after forest fires around Athens rose to 20. Firefighters continue in their struggle to contain the flames. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The 15th summit of the BRICS group started on Tuesday in Johannesburg, South Africa, and will conclude on August 24th. The day began with a business forum with the participation of ministers from the participating countries. Later, the leaders of the organization, led by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, made their speeches before meeting behind closed doors. 34 heads of states and government from Africa and Asia, as well as Latin America, are expected to participate in the summit. Today, 22 countries have formally expressed their interest in joining BRICS. The summit will address issues such as de-dollarization, the entry of new members to the bloc, and the creation of a new common currency of their own. During his speech at the BRICS Summit, Brazilian President Lula Silva referred to the development potential of the African continent.
The African continent was a priority for Brazil. I have made 12 trips to Africa and have been to 21 countries. Brazil is back on the continent where it should never have left. Africa has vast opportunities and enormous potential for growth.
The Brazilian president also called attention to the climate crisis and desertification affecting the African continent.
Region of the world that emits the least amount of greenhouse gases. However, this does not mean that it does not have to face the most perverse consequences of global warming, such as droughts, floods, fires, and cyclones. Brazil and many African countries have comprehensive plans to renew their energy mixes. We share the responsibility of caring for tropical rainforests and preserving biodiversity. We share the common concern of fighting the desertification process. Environmental and ecosystem services provided by rainforests to the world, they must be paid for in a fair and equitable manner. Social diversity products can generate jobs and income and offer alternatives to the predatory exploitation of natural resources. Africa.
Portland gave a speech at the BRICS Business Forum, which is taking place on Tuesday in the South African city of Johannesburg. Portland is participating in the event via video conference.
To fine-tune effective mechanisms of mutual settlements and monetary and financial control. As a result, the share of US dollar export and import operations within BRICS is declining. Last year, it was only 28.7%. In fact, this summit is to discuss the entire range of issues related to the transition to national currencies in all areas of economic cooperation between our five nations. The new BRICS Development Bank, which has already become a credible alternative to existing Western development institutions, has a great role to play in these efforts.
Addressing the 15th meeting of BRICS Business Forum leaders, India Prime Minister Narendra Modi stressed that India's economic growth is due to its ability to overcome difficulties, and referred also to several measures taken by his government to promote India's economic growth alongside the world's major economies.
Has converted crises and difficulties into opportunities for economic improvements. In the last few years, we have carried out reforms in mission mode, and these reforms have helped in continuously improving ease of doing business in India. We have also reduced the compliance burden, we have removed red tape, and instead laid the red carpet. There has been a boost in investor confidence due to introduction of GST and the implementation of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code.
On Tuesday, the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, arrived in South Africa after concluding a state visit to Angola. The Cuban head of state was welcomed by Costa Dlamini Zuma, Minister for the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. During his stay in South Africa, Díaz-Canel will attend the 15th BRICS Summit, the first in which the island will participate, which on this occasion also represents the Group of 77 and China. President Díaz-Canel will also hold bilateral meetings with several regional leaders, Cuban collaborators in South Africa, and representatives of the Movement of Solidarity with Cuba. Strong historical ties characterize the links between the two nations, whose foundations were built on the friendship of Fidel and Mandela, and on Cuba's contribution to the struggle against apartheid and colonialism. On Tuesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping called on China and South Africa to strengthen their partnerships in 4 dimensions during his state visit to the African nation. Xi made the remarks during his meeting with his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa in the country's administrative capital. While meeting with Ramaphosa, the Chinese leader called on both sides to be strategic partners of high-level mutual trust, adding that camaraderie and brotherhood are the true quality of bilateral ties. President Xi also stated that the two sides should focus on advancing the Belt and Road Initiative and implement the 9 programs of China-Africa cooperation. Over the years, bilateral ties have experienced what Xi described as leapfrog development, from a partnership to a strategic partnership and then to a comprehensive strategic partnership. China has remained South Africa's largest trading partner for 14 consecutive years, while South Africa has been China's biggest trading partner in Africa for 13 years in a row.
President Ramaphosa, my friend, I feel glad to pay another visit to South Africa, the beautiful rainbow nation. This is my 4th visit to South Africa as Chinese president, and I feel a particular warmth being in your country after 5 years. The key to such strong relationship and profound friendship between China and South Africa lies in the deep comradeship and brotherhood forged by the two countries and the two political parties through mutual support in pursuit of their respective development. Now, standing at a new historical starting point, both countries share the aspiration to carry forward the friendship, deepen cooperation and strengthen coordination, which is also the call of the times for both countries. I'm ready to work with you, Mr. President, to take the China-South Africa Comprehensive Strategic Partnership to new heights.
South Africa, as we welcome President Xi Jinping on his 4th state visit to South Africa. This visit takes place in the year that South Africa and the People's Republic of China celebrate 25 years of diplomatic relations. Our relations over the last quarter of a century are founded on South Africa's commitment of the One China policy. That for us is the foundation. China has been a valued friend and a development partner of South Africa. And as South Africa, we look forward to another 25 years of friendship between our two countries.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Costa Rica, university students demonstrated outside the presidential palace to demand an increase in the higher education budget for 2024. The mobilizations are in response to the government's refusal to increase the budget after the executive announced a plan to reduce the allocation to higher education by 12 billion colones. In this respect, the demonstrators demanded the fulfillment of the 8% of GDP stipulated in the Constitution for education. University authorities will hold a final meeting with the government to discuss the resources. If there is no agreement, it will be the Legislative Assembly that will define the final amount. Ecuador held a historic plebiscite. Almost 60% of Ecuadorians voted in favor of stopping oil drilling in one of the most biodiverse areas of the planet, the Yasuni. We tell you more in the following report.
Fighting for the conservation of the Yasuni for 10 years. He is part of the Yasunidos collective. After overcoming several obstacles in the Ecuadorian institutional framework, they managed to get the Constitutional Court, a decade after the process began, to issue a ruling in favor of holding a plebiscite to consult the people on whether they agreed with keeping the oil in the ITT block of Yasuni in the ground indefinitely.
It is the first country in the world to take real and concrete action to mitigate the effects of climate change by leaving oil in the ground. I believe that this is going to have an impact on the whole planet and that many organizations and ordinary people everywhere are going to make this bypass that we have made to traditional politics to the current politicians by achieving this popular consultation and keeping the oil in the ground regardless of their political positions.
Popular consultations in which almost 60% of voters said that they agreed with stopping oil extraction in this area of the Ecuadorian Amazon, considered one of the most biodiverse on the planet.
Voting yes to the Yasuni means bidding on the care and defense of life, of nature, of the indigenous people, of the defenders of the jungle, of the land, of the water, of the moors, of the air. Today, the desire of the Ecuadorian people of fair and more united country has triumphed.
The results come despite the fact that the government of Guillermo Lasso has threatened that the decision to leave oil in the ground could mean the elimination of the full subsidy.
They were trying to trick Ecuadorians into voting no, to try to cause fear, panic in the people, so that they would say no and believe it will bring us more violence, it will bring us more poverty, where we have been exploiting oil for 50 years and it has not brought us any benefits. This popular consultation only applies to one of the 50 blocks that exist in the country. It is not that oil exploitation is being stopped in the country, but only in the most biodiverse place in the world, and also in the territory of isolated indigenous peoples where there should never have been oil exploitation.
55,000 crude barrels come out of the 43 ITT block every day, equivalent to almost 11% of the Ecuadorian's national oil production. This gave the state, according to the government, revenue of about $1.2 billion.
Today, once again, we see that Ecuador is the light in this world that offers us a different way of life in which we don't think of sacrificing territory and life in the name of progress.
The next step is to show the country that we can have a healthy economy without destroying our natural heritage, our modern nature.
Natural heritage will be protected thanks to the decision of the Ecuadorian people. It is estimated that in the Yasuni there are more than 2,000 species of tree ambushes, 204 species of mammal, 610 species of birds, more than 100 species of reptiles, 150 species of amphibians, and more than 250 species of fish. The interior of the Yasuni is also inhabited by uncontacted peoples such as the Taigeri, Talomaneni, and the Dawakeri. The government will have 1 year for a progressive and orderly withdrawal of the oil infrastructure installed in the heart of the Amazon.
Elena Rodríguez, teleSUR Ecuador.
Greek firefighters scrambled to contain a raging inferno northwest of Athens as emergency services continue to battle a steadily growing wave of wildfires around the country that has left 20 dead. Hundreds of firefighters are trying to quell dozens of places, including several that have been burning out of control for several days and have forced widespread evacuations in the second deadly wave of fires in Greece in a month. Civil Protection ordered the evacuation of the city of Anoliosia in northwest Athens, a district of over 25,000 people, while residents from the neighboring town of Philly rushed to flee the advancing flames. Late summer heat wave breaks records as wildfires continue to rage across swath of continental Europe. Spanish firefighters were gaining the upper hand on Tuesday in their battle against a wildfire raging for a week on the holiday island of Tenerife that forced thousands of people to flee. About 600 firefighters and soldiers, backed by 22 water-dropping planes, were battling the blaze, which broke out late August 15th in an area of steep ravines and cliff in the northeast of the island, part of Spain's Canary Islands archipelago off the northwestern coast of Africa. Officials said cooler overnight temperatures and weaker winds had helped firefighters fight the flames, which have so far burned nearly 15,000 hectares. The fire, which now has a perimeter of around 88 kilometers, forced the evacuation of over 12,000 people, but officials said some from the villages of Arafo and Candelaria have been allowed to return to their homes. Spain's King Philip VI nominated on Tuesday the leader of the right-wing People's Party, Alberto Núñez Feijóo, to face a parliamentary vote for prime minister. The king, in his capacity as head of state, made a decision after consulting representatives of parties that won parliamentary seats in an inconclusive election on July 23rd. No single party or bloc earned an outright majority of seats in the snap general election, in which Feijóo's party won the most seats, 137, and so far he has the support of another 35 deputies, including far-right Vox, for a total backing of 172. However, earlier on Tuesday, acting Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said that he believed his Socialist Party will be able to gather parliamentary support needed to form a government. Feijóo needs the support of 176 lawmakers, or a simple majority of more yes than nays in a second vote. If he loses again, the king has to pick a new candidate. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Democratic People's Republic of Korea resumes international commercial flights after being closed for 3 years in response to the spread of the virus responsible for COVID-19. Local media reported that the Pyongyang-Beijing flight of the national airline Air Koryo landed in the morning hours in the Chinese capital. The aircraft were recognized for carrying cards with the faces of former leaders Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, the grandfather and father of current leader Kim Jong-un. The North Korean authorities expect 2 flights between the Russian city of Vladivostok and Pyongyang on Friday and next Monday. Russian military officials, including Moscow's deputy defense minister, arrived in Libya on Tuesday after receiving an invite from Khalifa Haftar. According to Moscow's defense ministry, this is the first official visit of a Russian military delegation to Libya. The entity added that this visit, led by Deputy Defense Minister Yunus Bekgurov, was organized after talks with Libya at the Army 2023 Expo and Moscow Conference on International Security earlier this month. During the visit, it is planned to discuss prospects for cooperation in combating international terrorism and other issues of joint action. On Tuesday, the African Union suspended Niger from the continental bloc with immediate effect, the latest of a number of sanctions on the West African country since last month's coup. The decision, announced after a meeting of the AU's Peace and Security Council in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, comes after several Western countries cut aid to Niger due to a July 26 coup that overthrew President Mohamed Bazoum. The Economic Community of West African States also imposed sanctions and last week agreed on a D-Day to begin a military intervention through an already activated regional strike force. Additionally, the AU said it was reviewing ECOWAS' plan of action and called on all of its member states and the international community to not undertake any action to legitimize Niger's military government. In Zimbabwe, hours before the general elections, the population of the Southeast African country is getting ready to decide who will be the next president. The presidential and parliamentary elections on Wednesday are crucial in determining the future of a Southern African nation endowed with vast mineral resources and rich agricultural land. SUMA-PF party leader Emerson Mnangagwa, who came to power in 2017 after deposing Robert Mugabe with the backing of the military, will seek re-election on Wednesday. Meanwhile, a deeply divided opposition, hampered by a series of court cases, has struggled to capitalize on public outrage over the near collapse of government services, triple-digit inflation, and high poverty rates. In this context, on Monday, Zimbabwe's largest opposition party, the Citizens for Change Coalition, held its campaign closing ceremony in the capital Harare. More than 10,000 people, many of them dressed in bright yellow, gathered to provide the last sign of support for the opposition leader before the elections. The demonstration was the end of a tough campaign in which dozens of campaign meetings of candidate Nelson Chamisa were banned and some of his supporters were attacked by alleged activists of ZANU-PF, the ruling party. In his speech, Chamisa assured that he will be victorious and that he is the only guarantee for a better future, although the latest polls show him below his opponent.
Go and vote for your future. Go and vote for opportunity. Go and vote for happiness. Go and vote for light. We are going to have a president for everyone. We are going to have a government for everyone. We are going to have an economy for everyone. We are going to make a Zimbabwe to be a Zimbabwe for everyone.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.